So this is Into the Soul. I'm your host Noel Jean, and today we have a honor to be talking to a man who, great dancer, been promoting for a very long time, is always on the front of the dance floor, and he also has been able to push a lot of great music in this underground scene here in Minneapolis. No other than Jeff Swiff.
Thanks for having me.
No, thank you for taking time out
It's
of your
cool to
day,
be
and
here.
it was a pleasure to finally be able to sit down and talk to you. Was it 2 weeks ago when Derek Carter was in town? The reason why I mentioned a great dancer
Yeah,
was you were front and center, right in front of the speakers, and you were
yeah,
moving and grooving the whole night, and
yeah.
that's the energy that I love. Because I feel like it's kind of a not a lost art, but sometimes people are scared to kind of just be themselves and just like really let loose. And you
100%.
are, once the music's playing, you're like, I don't care.
Yeah,
So
exactly. It's kind of like when I was young, it's like you go to places and you don't really know many people. So it's like, do you wallflower, hang around, try to figure it out? I learned early on, it's like, I'm just going to go and insert myself in front of that speaker and start moving my body, get my stress response lower, and then I'll just relax. And then I can kind of like mingle with people as they start to like do the same thing. It was like a really nice way for me just to ease into each dance floor. Now it's
mhm.
just, I'm there and I can basically hang off speakers. If
Yeah.
I can hang off your speakers, that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah, there you go. So a big sound system is kind of what you're looking for.
It's essential. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
What kind of got you like, you mentioned this like, letting yourself like be able to stress relieve and being able to meet people in that kind of sense of just going in front of the dance floor and just dancing. But like what kind of ignited that for you when you started going to parties?
So I found the music through big box mix CDs like Ministry of Sounds, things like that. So I would flip the books and I'd look at the pictures that the CD would have, and I'd see people having a great time, and I just like, that looks euphoric and wonderful. The music made me feel good, and I was like, how does this happen? Parties happen. You find magazines, you find internet forums, you start doing your homework to figure out how can I get this in my life, and that's kind of eventually what leads you there. So you make the decision, like I did, to try to figure out how I could get myself to a party. Once I was old enough, I made sure that I could get there, and then you just kind of do what you do when you get there is get comfortable, figure out what's happening, find the music, find yourself with the music, and then other people find you.
Hmm.
So I mean, you meet people through dancing. Basically, it was like an unspoken relationship for me early on. I would just go, I would groove, I would dance next to people. We would have an unspoken kind of familiarity. They'd see me, I'd see them. There'd be a smile, there'd be an eventual
Hmm.
embrace. Start riffing off of their moves, so on and so forth. Kind of figure out what my style is, what feels comfortable, and then eventually end up talking to him after seeing him on the dance floor 10, 20 times.
Oh yeah. No, that's how it is. Like for me, when I started going to day funk, I was like, was really reluctant to go to parties by myself, but I was like,
Yeah.
you know what, like let me just go to this party by myself. I don't know what's gonna happen. And when I started doing that, it was just instant, just like connection with people. Everyone was just so open and being like, oh, now whenever I go, everyone's just like, oh, what's up, Noel? It's such a great like feeling to
Yeah.
go out by yourself and not really have the. I mean, you're setting an intention of like wanting to meet people, but also setting the intention to listen to some great music and dance to
Yeah.
it.
Yep,
And
yep, yep.
when you're in a room with full like-minded people, I mean, as you said, it's just contagious. It's just that energy that everyone's just like, oh, like you're also here for this. And you start after like 10, 20 times, you're like, hey, like start talking, and make some
Definitely.
friends.
That organic feeling is just kind of, it's kind of the magic, making those bonds on the floor. And I'm happy that you say that you committed to kind of going out by yourself, because that's like a mantra of mine. And I almost kind of get tripped up when I make a plan to go with people.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, let me just go there, let me check out this music for myself, and then everything just kind of happens naturally on the dance floor, and then it kind of turns into a social setting if I want it to be that, but I don't even need to do that if I don't want to.
Mm-hmm.
And I can just come and go, and it's like it's 100% almost just pure entertainment, enjoyment, release, on your own terms, but it's also shared with other people. So it's like you get the best of both worlds. It's like
Yeah.
the freedom to go where you want to go. You prioritize the music you want to listen to or the people you want to check out. And then if you see like-minded people that great. If you meet new people, even better.
Yeah.
And then you
100%.
start to see those people everywhere you go, and that's that recognition that feels so good when you see people that are just like, oh yeah, let's get down.
Mm-hmm.
And or you recognize people who like certain sounds, and then you just start seeing each other at the same parties, and then
Yeah.
this is the crew.
This is
So
yeah.
then you
There you
migrate to
go.
where everybody's at, and that just becomes like basically the cheering section.
No, 100%. So let's take a step back and kind of talk about your first run-ins with music in general. What did it kind of that look like? How did it sound like? Who introduced you to just music and at a young age?
Cool 108, if anybody remembers that. My dad, 50s and 60s, quite religiously listened to that radio station all the time. Probably 94, 95, I figured out what KWB was.
Yep.
I had a stereo boombox. I started recording my own mixtapes off of songs that I liked. So started that. I heard some early house music, had no idea that it was house music. I just knew that I liked it, Planet Soul, stuff like that. I got into some interesting things, CDs, just from Best Buy. I'd go to the electronics section and be like, what's this? It was Venga Boys. It was a CD that was early middle school. Found Ministry of Sound stuff. I played in jazz bands. I played piano. Music was just constantly around. But there was something particular about house music when I found that. It just kind of set the tone. Like I in my bio, I have set the tone for how the rest of my life would feel. I feel so like uplifted and happy with house music. My brother was into really heavy metal, so like our basement was, like Slipknot on one side and then Louis Vega on the other side at the same time. And so it was like, it was just like polar opposites, and my music to me just felt so good, and I just wanted to do everything I could to chase that. Which eventually was, how do I get this music? It's pressed on records. Well, where do I get records? And that's what led me to the record store. So I found myself needing to consume.
Yeah.
I wanted this music in my life. I wanted it around me. I wanted to have access to it, and I wanted to experience it. It's kind of how it kicked off for me, which eventually turned into DJing in my house. And then the rest is history with throwing parties.
So it sounded like you found kind of house by your own self through just obviously, your parents, the radio, KDWB, and all that stuff. But then you kind of, were like, okay, where do I fit in this, musically in general? And then you found house music. You mentioned like Louis Vega. Who were some of those early artists that you gravitated towards?
So I was listening to DJ mixes by Boy George, Tom Novi, Lil Louis Vega, and then all the artists. So just everything that was on those mix CDs, I had to figure it out. I had to have it. And interestingly enough, it was such a priority for me that I ended up having records before I went to a party. So I was like, oh, these guys are DJing this music. This is how they have it. I want to do the same thing. I want to have this in my life. And so, luckily due to my parents, I had access to get downtown to get records. I worked, so I had money to spend on equipment. They took me to Mars Music, and I got my first DJ package. It was 2 stands and a mixer. And I set them up battle style in my basement, and I learned on records. And then when I was 16, I got out to parties. So I didn't have to look at the inlays. I didn't have to read the forums anymore. I was already becoming a student of who are the local DJs, what are the parties, how do you get there?
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure I knew what I was going to do if I had the opportunity to go. So I was, in my opinion, pretty well educated before I got there.
So it sounds like you're pretty like strategic about how you go about things. As you just said, who are the DJs, where are the parties, how do you get there, and all that stuff. How was the scene in Minneapolis during that time?
For me at the time, it was brand new to me. I was 15, 16 as an onlooker, cataloging what happened, who was doing what, who was contributing what. It was always important to me. Legacy was always important to me. Being able to meet somebody and understand who they were to me was always important. It ended up becoming kind of an inroad as a legitimizer for a conversation as a young kid, to be able to share with somebody how much I reviewed the work that they were doing, or if I had gotten a copy of their mixtape, or I understood that they've been throwing parties for 10 years, so on and so forth. That was what I used basically to introduce myself. And then I just became, can I help you?
Yeah.
Can I get closer to you and these people and this music and this culture by helping? And so it's, sure, kid, here's a stack of flyers. Go take care of the schools and hit the malls and do what you could do. And that's how I started being able to get introduced to local DJs as somebody who was not only just like dancing and going to these parties, but I had somewhat of like a involvement on the outskirts, if you will, like a legitimizer of he's here for a reason, like he's the kid that helps us with this, or he goes to the gas station to get ice, or he's a consistent person.
Yeah.
It's always been important for me, so the music's always been a super passion of mine. So I just really respected anybody that was already in it, and I wanted to be a peer, basically.
Yeah.
I just wanted immersion, and I wanted access to parties, and I wanted to be able to dance, and I wanted to stay out all night. And,
Yeah.
working those avenues for myself just gave me more access, which is more fulfilling at the end.
Yeah, and that's kind of interesting because like some people when they want to get into music and especially in the house scene, usually there's a couple paths you can take. A path of just being that person on the dance floor who's always energizing everybody
Yep.
up and
Yeah.
starting off, being there from the get go when the DJ is playing to five people. That one person is, well, I know that so and so is going to be there and they're going to be dancing their ass off.
Yeah.
And then you can be the person who is a little bit more involved, and it sounds like that was you in that case. What in your life or people around you in your life kind of like ignited wanting to be more immersive, not just kind of being like in the background? You wanted to be hands on, grabbing the flyers, getting ice, and all that stuff. Who in your life kind of made you want to, be immersive in whatever it was you wanted to do in life?
It's probably like all the social things that I was involved in. Probably as a middle schooler and an early high schooler, I was just like social circles through like church groups, things that I was involved in there, running youth programs, teaching swimming lessons, the variety of jobs and like just the things that I was involved in. I wanted to become essentially not only just a student of whatever I was interested in, but I wanted to, like I said earlier, just get as much access as I could so I could learn as much as I possibly could. So going to the record store, it's who are the DJs? They're selling their mixtapes. Oh, these guys that are working at this record store are DJs. Oh, they're at this party. Oh, these people play this type of thing. I know that I can gravitate towards these kind of events. So I guess it would be purposeful curation based on tastes. It kind of lends itself to that, to say, hey, this is what really charges me up and this is what I want to get, which is kind of, you've got your favorite DJs because they're gonna tick all those boxes for you. You're gonna get that experience. And it doesn't mean you're going to hear stuff that but you're going to hear stuff that it's just going to send you to where you need to be in that moment.
In that realm, yeah.
And a lot of teaching, a lot of this stuff was people were teaching me. I was hanging out with older people. They had ways, they were seasoned, they understood, and a lot of those older influences affect what I'm doing today. If you're 16 or 17, you're hanging out with 23, 24, 25-year-olds at the time. That's quite an age gap difference. And then even older, hearing the stories of what they did, where they came from, how they did things. Can I do any of that? And you kind of getting experience and hearing stories, you go, oh, I got to stay away from that. That's beyond my depth, or I don't like that, or I like this, So just being able to kind of essentially immerse myself and seeing people doing the same thing, seeing those people on the dance floor, you kind of know who's showing up for what reasons.
Yeah.
Like you can clock the kid that shows up right away because he wants to check out the DJ, or you can clock the other kids that want to make sure they get their spot on the dance floor. You also spot the people that are invested in what's going on, but they're also making sure that they're making time for their friends. And you understand that it can be anything to anybody.
Yeah.
And so all those different reasons for coming to the party matter, and not one so much more than the other in every instance. But I mean, from a party perspective, you want to make sure, I've always wanted to make sure that the things that I saw from the time of my youth that I really loved, I wanted to make sure that I recreated and that I continued to do things in that vein so those opportunities could be there for other people.
And you mentioned how, hey, as a 16-year-old hanging out with, 24, 25-year-olds or whatever, having that older influence, knowing, oh, this is maybe what I want to do, or no, I want to stay away from that, or, oh, that's a crazy story. I'll make sure I'll do my best never to have that happen to myself. Yeah. Did you ever have a mentor or anything like that, or was it just kind of a collective of just being surrounded by all these older people to kind of help you understand what it is and how it is I want to present myself in the scene?
I self-picked a couple heroes, and I kind of studied them, if you will, from a distance. Very limited interactions with them, so I did a lot of that inside myself. I gleaned what I could off of what they were doing. I had a couple of older mentors, some guys that I worked with throw some parties. They just kind of used their experience of what they'd done previously, and just kind of collaborated on, here's what we're trying to do. Are you interested? yeah, I think you should do this. Okay, well, you get so much advice, you say, do you just want to be involved? And they're like, oh, sure, we can be involved, not sharing that they want to, step into a new promotion crew. Some people didn't want to be involved on the front end, but they definitely wanted to be involved on the back end, meaning if they were investing in the party, that was happening as well. But I mean, it definitely wasn't done alone. It was done through collaboration with people. So it's like, how do I get a venue?
Yeah.
Who does a flyer? How do I even approach DJs, to book them? And then you'd ask a few people, they'd tell you, and then you'd say, well, what if I did it this way? And if they were supportive, then you felt like, oh, well, maybe let me just do that. Some of my instances were, I like to pay people well in advance. I like to give them directions to the party almost upwards of 3-4 weeks before the show actually happened. So I would spend time driving around trying to meet DJs, because landlines were a thing. Cell phones were basically, they were available, but you didn't have everybody's number because I was younger. So I was using and networking to try to find people to say, hey, where's so-and-so going to be? Oh, they got a gig on Friday. Cool. I got to go down there and I got to make sure they get that. So yeah, I mean, definitely mentors, indirect and direct, the entire time, even now. It's, Monty is my senior. I would probably say I'm almost 4th, 5th generation Minneapolis.
Okay.
He's probably generation 2.
That's great.
For dance music in the city, and I think of generations, some people could probably correct me as they hear this, but I think of generations in Minneapolis as 4 years.
Yeah.
You go 88 to 89, 90, 91, 92, so on and so forth. And then the next generation, everything else, I'm springing up and coming around basically in 2000, 2001. So Monty, as an example, he's my current local partner for House Proud, in addition to Brian Gerard, who's way north at Poplar House. But I mean, he was throwing his first parties in 92, 93. So for everything that he's done for the sounds to push the culture in the city, and everything that he's been a part of, and everything that he has seen, still important to me.
Yeah.
We asked him to step in as a local partner in 2020, COVID. And then we kicked off in 2021 with Monty's great presence with House Proud. That perspective, he's always been a good friend. He's always been a part of the party. He's played it, but I mean, to really sync up with that knowledge and history and have that represented still between his generation, my generation, the newer generations, it's kind of like honor who's been there before us, who's there with us now, and then who will be with us tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's kind of the ethos of how I like to make sure that I operate in the music space, whether that's through releases, especially parties, things we do like that. So split that between the party, the label, and then my own creative outlets, which is, I love DJing and making mixes and working on music. So
now, as we were just talking about, mentorships and just collaborating with people, obviously it sounds like it's a very important thing in your journey in music. How do you kind of see that still panning out in Minneapolis in general, in the scene here? Like, because I mean, for me me and my partner, how we throw parties under Soul Exchange, like, we collaborate with people, but I'm still trying to understand, because one, I want to preserve what we're doing in terms of the music that we're pushing out, and I want to make sure who I'm working with also kind of, they don't have to be on the same wavelength, but I want them to at least understand, okay, this is what you're doing. I want to make sure that we at least highlight each other so that this party or whatever we're doing can really, amplify the city. So how important is it in today's Minneapolis scene to kind of keep collaborating with other people?
Collaboration's important, not only just on like an outward front facing, I come from service industry, so is it customer facing or not? Like the presentation of the party, it's nice to collaborate, but that needs to happen with like-minded people behind the scenes that support all the efforts. So I mean, you've got to have a good network of people who push you, or people that you can riff off of to share music with. If you don't have anybody that's interested in anything that you're interested in, you kind of feel like you're on an island. And part of us as DJs enjoy sharing that music, sharing that feeling, sharing that expression with people, not only just DJing, but also receiving on the dance floor, and that exchange between the two of them. I'm assuming Soul Exchange, there's roots in these ideas we're talking about now for why this party exists. I've played one of your parties. I understand what you guys are doing, and I think that collaboration is an essential part of what's happening on the back end or on the front end. It doesn't need to be crew A and B get together to combine forces to do this party, but you can be almost guaranteed and sure that a person from this crew talks with people from these crews here. They probably DJ often. They talk about what they're seeing. They talk about maybe what kind of DJs they think could break in Minneapolis, what would work, what wouldn't, what would be best for the sounds of what we're doing. Mm-hmm. You know, your presentation for the sounds you want to push don't need to sound, and they shouldn't sound like the next person. Mm-hmm. You know, and a lot of people, I don't think a lot of people here, but a lot of people in general be concerned about stepping on each other's toes with sounds, or who can get a DJ booked first, or who wants to break records first. I mean, it's a tale as old as time. It's really fun to break new DJs in a city organically.
Yeah.
Because, hey, I really dig these people. I think that it'd be awesome to get them here. I think the people that are here would love that. If you can do that, great. But I mean, not from a competition standpoint of, well, I got to race to get this person before that person gets it. Yeah. So then everybody will come here first. And then, you know, making decisions based on ticket sales doesn't really beget collaboration. You can tell.
Yeah.
You know, you can see with people that are just like chasing moments, chasing content as an example, versus, hey, we've been doing this for a long time and it's organically taken us 15 to 20 years to book so-and-so, but I think we have an opportunity to do it. Let's dig deep and let's take a risk here and really like present our musical passion and hope that it works out.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, having integrity in the decisions you make, you know,
yeah.
and staying true to yourself. And if you can do that with other people, I think that's so awesome.
No, yeah, it's something that is like a little tricky sometimes, because like you want to preserve what you're doing, and you know, bringing somebody somebody into your business it is a risk at the end of the day too, you know, as you said. But wanted to kind of pivot to kind of you and your journey. When was it? What moment was it when you kind of were like, I want to make a name for myself in the scene here. I want to start producing music, and you know, really want to take this to the next level. What did that look like, and when was that?
It's a really good question. I don't know if I've ever actually thought about it like that. I will tell you as briefly as I can. In the beginning, it was, I want to have a hand in creating moments, which is why I was so kind of hell-bent on trying to throw my own party as early as I did. To my own risk, of course. I learned a lot. I did a couple of those things, but it just was a priority for me to continue doing that through college, through bedroom DJing, taking gigs in college. And it took me 10 years to break in to actually get a gig in Minneapolis.
10 years to finally get yourself booked for the first time.
Exactly. Like legitimately booked.
Okay.
You know, but I never slowed down. I was going to college. I was here. I was going out all the time. I was DJing out of state, but I was still DJing. You know, I would submit mixes here and there. People knew me as the speaker freaker kid, but I wasn't getting bookings, you know, until 2010, really. And it was somebody in Monty's generation, you know, that actually gave me a shot.
Were you like always just around that person in that crew?
Not even always, but there was like an understood respect of, this person was from Minneapolis soul music. They've been around. They have had residencies. They've mentored people. They brought other generations up. And then it just so happened that person kind of opened the door for me.
Okay.
You know, and I know there's a lot of folks that have concerns about gatekeepers and stuff, but I mean, like, good gatekeepers, they'll hold the door open for everybody else. You know, and like you said earlier with your parties, it's like you have a duty to yourself to make sure that the sounds you're pushing are curated. You know, because what's to separate you from somebody else? So I get that. And it wasn't until 2010, basically, that I was like, I want to make a name for myself to be legitimized as a DJ in Minneapolis, rather than just the kid that goes out and dances all the time, because I've been doing it for so long.
Yeah.
For other areas and other folks as well. I wanted that acceptance, you know, in a highly competitive DJ culture here in Minneapolis, very technical, a lot of DJs in the crowd. If you lost a mix, they'd call you on it. You know, they wouldn't be afraid to tell you, like, this mix was all right.
Yeah.
You get them next time. So there was like for me, it was always like highbrow, high caliber. I wanted to be legitimized. And if I could do that through my DJing, that's how I decided I wanted to make a name for myself and to continue to be seeing myself on these parties that I adored and that I went to. So it's about 2010.
Yeah, the one thing that you said was about how, if you made a mistake on a mix, like people will let you know, or everyone here in Minneapolis is very technical, and
Yeah,
like that's kind of what I love about it, because it kind of pushes me whenever I'm about to play for like Dave Funk or something. I'm like, I got to
yeah,
make sure I'm curating like good music, like not about just, you know if it is a beat matching correctly. It's about, is the next track flowing well with the next one? Am I,
yep,
continuously keeping people on the dance floor? Am I keeping the vibe up for what the party's originally vibe is, or whatever the case may be? So like, it's always, it's a good like pressure that I love about Minneapolis,
yeah,
because we're not a big city. We're not, a Chicago or New York. It's small, and our underground is small, so everyone is like, hey, like you gotta put your best foot forward, and
yeah,
that's what I really love about this city. Now let's shift over to kind of some of your projects. You are part of House Proud. You're the promoter now for
yeah,
House Proud, and then also Nicewon Records.
yeah,
Let's start with Nicewon Records. How did that come about? It's you and Christian James, correct?
yeah. Nicewon Recordings is kind of a personal project for. It's kind of the same old story. It's like you want to put out your own music, you want to have control of it, you also kind of want to hone your craft, and it's been very intentional. So I mean, we started Nicewon technically back in 2013 when we worked together.
Uh,
Started trading house records and realizing we kind of had a newfound taste for swung out grooves. That's when Max Gray first dropped. All those German labels that came out, all that dusty, swung out, beautiful music, and we're like, oh, this is
mhm.
it. So starting to make music slowly over time, trying to say, not chasing an aesthetic, but wanting to be able to make something that we would enjoy playing. And I'm kind of speaking for myself. Christian's been producing for a long time. I didn't get serious about producing until like 2011, 2012.
Okay.
So kind of creating a goal. Here's the label. When we get to a point where we're happy with music, let's release it. Our first release was in 2017.
Oh wow.
So the creative journey of meeting together on kind of a weekly basis, let's make stuff, let's maybe put out a free download, let's workshop together. It was just the art of doing
Hmm.
has become. Nicewon Recordings is a project, but it's more like an outlet for a relationship through music. Um, we've had guest artists. We just did a recent VA. It was a digital. We do mostly records. They're artist EPs, and so we'll bring in notable names as remixers to try to put a different spin on what we're doing here to give it a worldly kind of a slap that it needs from whoever's interested. So
Hmm.
that's kind of the platform. It's a label that exists for Christian and I's output. We like to bring remixers in, and then occasionally we will release a collection of tunes from everybody else, just kind of as a VA, something just to keep going.
Hmm.
Something records are nice mementos. They're good business cards in the world of music. As an example, you press them up and you send them out, and you hope that they make an impact with people that have them.
Yeah.
And then just the tangible nature of having it is it's nice to have on a shelf, just like seeing a record that we did with MPLS House and Angel here
Yeah.
locally on your shelf. It's like you'll have that for years to come, and there'll
No.
be memories associated with
Really
that.
cool stuff.
It's
Yeah.
just local artifacts and things like that. So that's what Nicewon is.
Now you said, while yes, it's a personal project, there's a lot of labels in Minneapolis. What kind of sets you apart from anybody else that's doing their own personal thing here?
We're pushing raw, dusty, swung out, non-linear, non-conventional dance music. There's nothing obvious about what Nicewon is doing unless you're initiated in dusty beaters that you feel like you've lost track of on a B-side in a record that you got 20 years ago, and you pull it out and you flip it over and you're like, wow, this really hits on the system.
Hmm.
Why did I never play this? The more introspective tunes, the stuff that piques an ear rather than is an obvious floor filler, which speaks to like kind of the integrity of what you're creating. You're creating whatever it is, and whatever you're happy with is what goes out. It's not chasing an aesthetic. So
Yeah.
almost every release has a distinct feel to it because that's the mood of the time and the era in which that music was created. So
Yeah. No, and that, especially like this era of music, everything kind of is sounding the same. Everything's
yeah,
being pushed out. You go on Beatport, you're like, well, all these tracks sound the same, and people get into this battle of, is this even deep house? Is this even, whatever this case may be? But it's just like, you didn't even really say what genre. You're just like the dusty swung, whatever you're feeling during that time period of
Yeah.
whatever is going on. And I think that's really important when it comes to like having a record label. You shouldn't chase the trends. You shouldn't be like, oh, we need to make sure we're pushing this kind of thing out. You should just push out what is of interest to your ear, the influences that you've had growing up, and whatever that feeling you're feeling in that time zone or when you're in the studio, that's what you're pushing out.
Yeah.
And also, you mentioned your collab with MPLS House.
Yeah.
I wanted to grab that real quick,
Cool.
actually,
Yeah.
just so the people can see. So yeah, just tell us a little bit about this collab here. It was Angel actually gave me this in
Cool.
PLS House, and I was like, that's actually a really cool gift. And I already had it digitally, but having something tangible is always really dope. And we talked about how you have
Yeah.
cassettes, CDs, and you have a couple vinyls out. So yeah, just tell us a little bit about this little bad boy here.
This record is pressed on a DC label with a friend of mine out there, Martine. He runs Real Feel Records. He also does Better Listen Records, and he does extended play parties. Had some music that we created together, MPLS House. We did a release together on Nicewon first. It was Marcus and Angel and I. We worked on some tunes at their studio, came over to my house, worked on some stuff, tracked some vocals. We did some sessions where we got it put together, and it was like the most organic feeling of writing music with people. It just happened. We didn't have to force anything. We didn't even really we didn't A&R ourselves to say, well, let's do this or let's talk about this. It just happened. So we got That Man Monks on a remix. It did well, and we just decided, let's keep this going. Not with the goal to do anything with it. We just got together and we just wrote more music. And I happened to have shared it with Martine, and he was like, this is really great. Can we put it out? And I was like, of course. So, submitted it. He asked who was somebody that we'd want to get a remix on there, and Byron the Aquarius was number one at top. So he was able to get Byron to step into the record and do a remix, and it's one of the most warm, happy, soul charging releases. I'm most proud of this one with those boys. It's just, the music is different from what you're going to hear when you pick up a house record. It's distinctly us. It's distinctly this city, and it's definitely different. And I think it's just a good representation of the type of sounds that can come out of South Minneapolis, as an example, when you're just having a good time and writing what comes out naturally.
Well, that's really cool. Yeah, that's a really cool story. Actually, I didn't. When I was talking to Angel about it, he told me how you guys met up and everything, but that side of your story about it is just a really cool instance. Hearing something about that and then finally getting it physically tangible to feel, is, I could only imagine how surreal that is. And so the other next project now that you're part of is House Proud. You mentioned to me the originators. I can't remember the
Brian
name.
Gerard, Nicole Johnson.
Yeah, they're no longer a part of House Proud.
Brian Gerard still is. So Brian Gerard, Nicole Johnson. Brian used to DJ for me at Social House, Fusion/Social House in Uptown. And Nicole had a birthday party that Brian did with her. And they said, that was a really fun time. Maybe we should do this again. And they had access to Honey at the time. There weren't any other dance nights going on. And so they asked, Honey, can we do this? The first one was schemed up basically at the bar where I was working. They graciously asked me to play the first one. It was also Nick Guns, who you've had on here before, and you've played at Day Funk. And Chuck Love was on accompaniment for the first one. It was Brian Gerard, Nick Guns, and myself. For the very first one, it was $5, and it was like touting lubricants of old music, Mashes at Work, Dage, Lisa Shaw, trying to predefine kind of like the sounds that were missing in Minneapolis at the time as kind of a throwback to soulful house music. And the rest is history, essentially. I started helping set up kind of the same old recipes I've been involved in since a kid. I love it. Let me support it every which way I can. Started doing some flyers. Nicole Johnson ended up having a child, so she stepped away from the party in 2014 and asked me to step in for her. You know, so it was Brian and I co-promoting the party from 2014 all the way up until Honey closed, which was devastating for the city. But you know, as COVID does, it ravaged a lot of things. And during that time, Brian had moved up to open up Poplar House, and then I asked Monty to step in as another local partner. So it's Brian Gerard, Monty Hillman, and myself currently actively promoting the party.
Now, House Proud is, I mean, it's been around for what, 20?
15. This 15? August
okay.
It'll be 15.
15.
Yeah.
Oh, this August is the 15th.
Yeah.
Okay.
Technically it's July, but we always throw it in August.
Just
to make it official.
And being a part of something that's just, so huge. I mean, whenever I go, it's just, I mean, I remember the first time I went was at Beast Barbecue in the basement there. Now that's going to be, I don't know, some sushi spot now. But, being in that basement, sweaty, it's just, dingy. I mean, not too many lights. And I instantly fell in love with what was going on. That was kind of when I was getting into the scene in Minneapolis.
Okay.
Like I was like, I want to say like 3 years ago. Yeah, 3 years ago. Yeah. That was my first time going to one of the House Prouds. And I was just like, I didn't know that this existed in Minneapolis. And I instantly fell in love. And, when you guys came back again after, taking a little break after that incident, I mean, the city showed out. It was prominent that, House Proud is still very important to people because they know the history, the culture, how much work you guys put into it. How does that feel to be part of something like that?
I'm not gonna shine anybody on and say it's not gratifying. It feels like a culmination of life work wrapped up into one presentation that serves and provides for so many people, me included. There's not a shortage of joy that I get from seeing everything come together, like finding enough space for folks to play, to have a good time, to curate a night that I think works well for the DJs and for the room so that everybody has a great time when they play, trying to make sure that all the elements are there for the right recipe for people to have that experience. The prioritization of analog lights, no LEDs as an example. Everything there is analog. We love that. More static sweeping lights, nothing too invasive, big sound, super important. I say that this is sound system music. Mm-hmm. Certain tunes are going to hear, you're going to hear it differently on a rig. You're going to hear the nuance. You're going to feel it in a different way than you would if we just brought out some powered speakers as an example. It's not a hit on anybody else. I'm just saying it's a priority of ours to make sure that we're giving you the presentation and trying to honor this music in a way that it can be translated so that you can feel it in the way that it was meant to be felt. So it does feel really good to pour essentially everything I have into preserving that experience as best I can for other people. It doesn't mean that it's for everybody all the time, but it's never going to stop unless people decide that, there's no need for this party anymore, or it's outlived its legacy. As an example, we'll never just drag it on. This thing has always kind of just done what it needs to do. We lost Honey, weren't sure what was going to happen. Do we turn it into an after hours party? Things just happen organically. Beast became available. It has to be a marriage. There's certain things that we need. We need to store stuff. We need to install things. And it was a perfect home, And Honey was a basement. Beast was a basement. Sociable is not a basement, but we're trying our best to make sure that we can kind of recreate as much of that aesthetic as we possibly can. And it's a joy. It's a life's work, but it is a joy.
And when you guys had to make that shift from Beast Barbecue to Social, how was, it's always, when you have a home for a party, where some promoters like us, we don't have a home yet, but so it's not like, oh, we are, oh my gosh, we need to figure out where to go next. It's like, okay, we can move wherever we want. But when you have a home in your station for so long, how does that feel to kind of change and, make a new scenery? What does that process look like to making sure that space is presenting what you want for the party? Because, I mean, you had two basements and now you're not in the basement. How does that kind of shift make you feel? And how does that, how does that go into planning for even trying to make sure that you preserve what you've been doing in basements?
It's scary. So that's like the human instinct and the reaction is change is scary. It's not, it was the same. Like Honey closed. It was like, oh, what are we going to do? Because there was such a magic brewing in that basement. Like just the conditions of what was happening there just made it a certain experience for people. would the magic last of the party if we go somewhere else? We answered that question by doing what we could to curate the room, provide the same aesthetic that we thought. But when you go to somewhere like Sociable, the nitty gritties of, there's a lot of windows in here, we got to cover them all up. So let's go buy blackout fabric and let's sit at our houses and let's sew them together and let's make custom coverings, and then let's spend the time to add an extra hour or two to each setup to make sure that the room is blacked out, as an example. Let's install the lights that we had at Beast at Sociable, and let's continue to hone the presentation of where do they need to be. How many more do we need? It doesn't necessarily feel like it did at Beast because they're not all right behind the DJ booth. How can we kind of dial the room in, basically, so it becomes an invigorating pursuit of, is this the right recipe? It feels good, meaning if it's dark enough and the lights are there and the music is right, that's the start. And as long as that foundation's great, which it is there, the venue is awesome, we have that, and now let's just fine tune everything, the flow. Let's break up the dance floor from the bar area, just define details. So, I mean, it's no longer nerve-wracking. It's more or less a cavalier nature to say, we're at this point now where we're going to continue to take risks. We're going to book people that we believe in. We want the music to be out front of everything else we're doing. We're not going to chase trendy bookings. We're just going to book people that we believe in, and hopefully that experience and what the room has become over the many years with the people that are there. It's the people that show up to the party that make the party. It's not us standing in the corner that we've created a perfect room and then the party's going to be great. It's who shows up.
No, and the crowd. I mean, I obviously see some of the people from like Dave Funk be at a house party. They're all over the place at the end of the day. And their energy is contagious. I mean, there's always a group of guys who are just, I mean, everyone there seems like they're still little kids, and I love that. They're just laughing, making these funny chants, and just like it's just so contagious, so beautiful, and I love that about Minneapolis. And it's just it's really great to kind of see that still being. It doesn't matter where they are. They're like, hey, wherever that party goes, I'm going to be there, and I'm going to keep doing what I kept doing since day one.
It's like educated listeners too. You know, when you mentioned earlier, technical. There's a lot of DJs in the crowd, but there's also a lot of well-educated fans in the crowd of the music that understand. Oh, this record did this so many things for these so many people, or I heard it for the first time in New York at this place, and oh my God, I love it. It's here now. There's a real deep connection to the experiences that people have with music, and they know what they know, and they know what they like. And when they get that on the dance floor, or you feed them new selections they've never heard that hit the same vein, it's like you're still seeing that kind of reaction. It's just beautiful.
Oh, it's really dope. So what's up next for you? Any new projects, music, anything out? What is next for you?
This is the last, I would say, productive music that I put together. Okay. I've done a couple remixes, but life ebbs and flows. I've been really into digging records and selling off a lot of my collection and doing mixes for some folks and standing up a couple parties has kind of taken most of my creative juice, if you will.
Okay.
So what I'm aiming to do next is, in this short order, continue to dial the party, continue to make bookings for new DJs in Minneapolis, continue to bring in some folks from out of state, intermix the two, make sure that party gets dialed in. We've got Christian, who is coming out with an EP soon. I'm in actually conversation before I showed up here, finally trying to lock down a remixer so we can send that off to press. We get our records pressed in Detroit.
Okay.
So there'll be another record coming from Christian James on Nicewon, probably in 6 months' time. It's about how long records take. And I'm hoping just to kind of bring my do stuff frequency down so that I can just kind of tune out and get back into the habit of the exercise of making music and getting that outlet and starting to focus my energies back on expressing myself through making music. I feel like I've handled enough of the things that needed handling, that now that I can comfortably say, okay, I can focus on doing music again. So that's basically it, man. I just want to focus on making tunes for the rest of the year, make sure that everybody's having a good time, and continue to make sure that everybody understands that what we're doing not only with the parties between Nicewon or House Bar, that it is accessible to everybody and that they can see themselves being a part of that.
Oh, it's really dope, man.
So,
no, thank you very much for taking time, and
man.
this was an awesome conversation. And
Thanks for having me.
I was looking forward to it, and it was
Cool,
great. It was great, man. Appreciate it.
Appreciate you. Thank you.
It's just a video.
Oh, it's a video. Okay.